will begin the Thursday, September 17th school board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Member Clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Member Corcoran?
Here.
Member Corcoran is here. Member Ketto?
Here.
Member Ketto is here. Member Olson?
Here.
Member Olson is here. Member Rayfield?
Here.
Member Rayfield is here. Member Tyson?
Here.
Member Tyson is here. Member Peterson?
Here.
Member Peterson is here. And Member Luthner is here.
All right, thank you, Member Clerk. We will move to approving the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, hold on,
Second.
hold on. Before we move to approve the consent agenda, I would like a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda, because it was changed today. So therefore, I would like to entertain a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by, Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Take my job. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye.
All right. With that, now we will move to approving the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk?
Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye.
All right. We will move on to old business. Setting of the preliminary tax levy for 2021. Director Martini.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The state of Minnesota annually transmits the property tax levy early in the month of September. However, they need to go through a series of correction processes. Most of the things are correct in our levy. We are still waiting two pieces that need correction. So much as we've done in the past, we would ask you to, this evening, approve certifying the maximum to the counties and to the Minnesota Department of Education. So this being an action item, we'd ask you to do a roll call vote on approving that motion.
So moved.
Second. On 5.1.
Jeff, you're muted.
Yep.
Jeff, we can't hear you.
I
Okay.
apologize. All right. I have
Oh, there you are.
muted. Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I guess the discussion was, is this motion sufficient, or do we need to say that what the number are? Do we have to, in the motion, specify the amount?
Certifying the maximum to the counties and to the Minnesota Department of Education is all that's necessary, because we have a dollar amount now that will change with the corrections.
So we're good to go.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Member Clerk?
Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We will move to the COVID-19 update. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take some time to get through a couple of different items tonight, but before I get into a lot of details about our COVID work and our school models, you'll recall that on July 30th, we received our metric from the governor on how we should open. We have been tracking COVID cases since mid-July and every day since then. In fact, I've got a spreadsheet where I capture the daily report from MDH for Anoka, Chisago, and Washington County. It gives us a daily barometer of what's going on out there in our respective counties. Keep in mind, our school district represents the eastern part of Washington County, the eastern part of Anoka, the northwestern part of Washington County, and just a small part of Chisago. But those counties are the counties, of course, we serve, and our metric and guidance from the state and the governor is that we track and monitor cases within the county. We are also tracking and monitoring cumulative cases in our zip code. The guidance and direction we've been given from MDH and the governor is that we monitor 2-week counts in those respective counties. And starting on July 18th, we received our first 2-week case count. And each week thereafter, we receive a 2-week case count per 10,000 residents of our 3 counties. And I would share with you that early on in July, if we look just at Washington County, first of all, let me say that there's a corresponding metric that would guide districts' operational plans for bringing kids back to school, where if the case counts are between 0 and 9, all students theoretically could come back in person. If the 2-week case counts per 10,000 is between 10 and 19, the guidance would suggest that we could open fully in person at the elementary, but hybrid at the secondary. 20 to 29 would suggest hybrid elementary, hybrid secondary, and so on. Over 50 would be a threshold that would cause us to consider going distance learning for all students. In mid-July, that number was 14.84, so we're right in the middle early on in that metric for in-person elementary, hybrid secondary, and that's the number that we were looking at when we set our model initially on July 30th. The numbers in Washington County and Anoka County have been going up slightly since then. In fact, on August 15th, the report was 20.6, and the next week that jumped to 22.9, which began to cause concern for us as we're now in the next zone of consideration for our school model. But the next week, the numbers actually dropped slightly. And all along, we have been guided by MDH to set our school plan working towards the idea that we would be in that plan for the long term. The idea is not that we move in and out of our school models, as that would be extremely disruptive to staff and kids and families for sure. So we set our model with that in mind. And while the numbers moved up in the county, we were concerned about that and consulting with MDH, but kind of held the ground, waiting to look long term. We got an update today, as we do on every Thursday afternoon at 11 or morning at 11. And I'm happy to report that the Washington County number this week was 17.21, a significant drop from the 22 number we saw the previous week. So we're now back in all 3 of our counties, safely in the zone of in-person elementary, hybrid secondary. I think that's really good news. Frankly, we were expecting to see that turnaround because we've been monitoring zip code data as well, and the cumulative case counts have been trending lower in the zip codes that we serve as a school district. So the numbers and the metrics, I think, support where we're at. The numbers have been relatively stable. We have not seen a dramatic increase in any of those weeks that we've been monitoring, which would suggest that for the current time frame, it's hard to predict how long, but currently we are seeing stable numbers being reported for our 3 counties. That would suggest that we are in a good model for the current time and into the near future. I would never suggest at this stage that we're in it for the long term. Things are way too fluid to suggest that, but we're quite comfortable with our school model, the safety measures we have in place, and the numbers now clearly supporting that. We'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to consult with MDH and an individual from Washington County that I've been on the phone with twice as well. Just walking through the case counts and having them analyze our plan and so on. We've developed on our website a table where we're going to be able to report positive cases for students and positive cases for staff to our public. We'll update that every Friday, so tomorrow we'll have an update. The public will see there that we have had, by tomorrow, unless we have cases tomorrow, there'll be 3 cases for students identified there and 1 for a staff member. When we have a positive case, I won't get into all the nuance, but when we have a positive case, we then activate a team to contact trace anybody that would have had a close contact with that student or staff member. I'm happy to report that we have excluded very few students or staff members, for that matter, for close contact. So we're happy that we've got a plan in place that is appropriately distancing kids. So when we have a positive case, the level of close contact is relatively small. We currently have 1 classroom on distance learning due to exposure, but not an entire grade level in that particular school. That's all due to the measures that are in place to keep kids confined in grade levels and pods so they're not exposing other kids on the playground, in the lunchroom, or in the classroom, or in the school as a whole. Interestingly, the cases that we had at the secondary school with kids passing in and out of classes all day long, there were 0 close contact being 6 feet for 15 minutes within a secondary school because of the spacing that we have put in place on the hybrid model. So the safety measures are working. When we have a positive case, we're able to provide a safe response for the kids and staff involved in that school and who might have been exposed to that particular student or staff member. Again, you know that we started our school year on September 8th with in-person learning at the elementary and hybrid learning at the secondary level. And first of all, I'm happy to report that we entertained the governor on the first day of school at Wyoming Elementary, greeting students as they got off the bus. This is an exciting day, not just at Wyoming, but across the school district as we welcome kids back to school. For the first time since March 17th, I believe, was the day that we went distance learning back in the spring. First day that we had kids back in school. Kids were thrilled, staff were thrilled, and to a certain extent, masks and social distancing aside, we're back to some normal routines, and it feels really good to have kids back in classrooms learning with teachers. I want to just highlight for a moment the elementary model. The elementary model is one in which we have all kids back in person every day and a parallel distance learning model called Ranger Academy. We have just over 400 kids in our Ranger Academy. We have 14 teachers that we have shifted to serve those kids in Ranger Academy. So they are served all day long for their 6.5-hour learning day with that cohort of teachers. With COVID relief funds, we've also added 7 teaching positions to the elementary, further reducing class sizes so that we can space kids out in those classrooms. It would be wrong for me to say that elementary teachers have an easy job. There is nothing easy about what we're doing today. They are up to their eyeballs meeting the challenge. It is a demanding job. At the same time, their task is more manageable because Ranger Academy is served by a different set of teachers, and they are working and focusing only on the kids that are coming into their classroom every day. At the secondary level, we're running a hybrid model where kids come every other day, and the distance learning kids, again, similar to the elementary, just over 400 kids in distance learning. There are probably between 90 and 100 different courses those 400 kids are taking between 7th grade and 12th grade. You can imagine the scale and magnitude of trying to serve distance learning kids with a cohort of teachers. In the elementary level, they're all in a grade level, and one teacher can serve a group of kids. 7-12, with the myriad of classes kids are taking, that is unrealistic to expect a group of teachers to meet all those different curricular needs and course selections. So instead, all those distance learning kids have a school schedule with a myriad of different courses, just like peers that are coming to the classroom on the hybrid model. So a teacher will have the kids that are scheduled to come every day on the every other day on the hybrid, and the kids who are learning in distance learning. Those are the same kids that are on their roster. So in reality, a secondary teacher is serving the kids that come on a maroon day, providing support for learning for the kids that are on the gold day, learning at home, and meeting the learning needs of the kids that are learning completely at home. Theoretically, they're the same. They're taking the same course, but their learning modality, their learning needs, the way in which we engage them in learning is quite different. We are utilizing technology tools to bring kids into the classroom. That will get better over time, but serving the needs of kids who are completely learning at home, from answering questions, adjusting learning, assessing their learning, is different than what you can do when kids are coming every day in person. I can tell you from the countless conversations I've had with secondary teachers, and I know many of you have as well, from direct conversations and emails, teachers, there's not a single secondary teacher I've heard from who's complaining about the workload, but there is grave concern about secondary teachers' ability to meet the learning needs of the students that they have been asked to teach. The expectation in theory works well, but in reality, the demand of meeting their learning needs throughout the week and continuing into the school year is a daunting, if not an untenable task. So our administrative team has spent a lot of time consulting with and working with the principals. They've been part of our planning team, having conversations with teachers. We have spent a lot of time in the last number of days working through different possible solutions to help our teachers better meet the needs of the kids who are learning in distance learning, as well as the kids coming to their classroom. And we believe that an adjustment to our hybrid schedule is in order. And the adjustment that we are planning to make would be to add a distance learning day and a collaboration day to the week. In order to accomplish that, we would adjust the school calendar and the identification of maroon days and gold days. By doing that, we've been able to create a more consistent pattern of maroon days and gold days. The current calendar we're working under is every other day, which works, but it can be a bit confusing for families to track. This will create a more consistent calendar for families. Monday and Wednesday would be maroon days. Tuesday, Thursday would be gold days. Friday will be a distance learning day for teachers to service kids in the distance learning program. And we will be working with the staff, developing a schedule for staff. They'll report to work on those Fridays like they normally would, but they'll be serving digitally those kids, work on a regular school schedule as well as collaboration time and built-in office hours to serve the needs of kids who have questions, needs, direct instruction that teachers may need to provide for their students. I worry that if we don't make this adjustment, we are going to underserve our kids in distance learning, and that would be really unfortunate. So this adjustment allows us to better meet the needs of all of our students, and our staff are fiercely committed to doing that. We need to provide an adjustment in order to enable them to do that and to do that well. I will say that we have a lot of technological opportunity to engage distance learning kids to the learning that's happening every day in the classroom. We have Google Hangout like we're on here. We will miss the golden opportunity, if there is such a thing with COVID and a pandemic, to truly shift and take advantage of new ways of engaging kids in learning. And we have the opportunity to bring those distance learning kids right into the classroom through the different technology tools that we have. So they're hearing conversation, they're hearing instruction, lecture, asking questions, participating in conversation. So we're continuing to push hard on that, and our teachers are working hard to make that happen. But at the same time, those distance learning kids will need direct contact time with teachers. And when kids are coming every day to the classroom, those kids we're just not able to meet the needs of those kids because teachers are focused on the kids that are sitting in desks in their classrooms more than they're able to provide the support for kids in distance learning. So that is an update that we are looking to put in place. Our plan would be to roll out a new calendar if you approve that tonight, and I'll talk about that in the next agenda item. And then the start date would be September 28th, with the first distance learning day being the Friday of that first week of school, of the week of September 28th. So with that, I will take any questions.
One question I have, Steve, is, so there's 400 students in the distance learning. How does that all divide up with the teaching staff then?
At the elementary level, Member Tyson,
No.
or secondary?
Secondary.
Yeah, it varies. There are some teachers with 5 kids per hour, maybe 20 to 25 throughout their day that they're trying to serve. There are others that might have 1 or 2 and maybe 10 or 12 throughout their day. So there is a range and a variation depending upon how the schedule works.
Okay. Well, I think that's excellent. The distance learners need to have that equitable education as well. And I have heard from teachers that it's just too much. They're working on it well into the evening. You know, after they've had their family time, they'll go back to their computer and be there till 11 o'clock at night. So I think this is a great idea to ease that and for those distance learners to have that equitable education as well.
Yeah, I've said this once, I'll say it again. Maybe this is your experience as well. I'm yet to hear a teacher complain, but I am hearing teachers gravely concerned about not being able to meet the needs of all their learners.
Do we have any further questions?
I have a question. When will this proposed change start?
We'll start on the September 28th, so next week, because the calendar adjusts, and I suspect there are schedules set on the previous calendar. So this would start on September 28th, with the first distance learning day being October 2nd.
And will we let parents know tomorrow that this is happening so they can adjust their schedules?
No, we are going to send a message as soon as you approve the calendar tonight.
Wonderful.
So I just have a quick question. We heard about the staff welfare, and I kind of feel like I kind of understand it, but detail a little bit better for me what's going to be happening for the student and the teacher on that Friday.
Well, on that Friday, we have built out a 7-period day schedule at the middle school and the 5-period day schedule at the community school and high school. So every student today at the middle school has a 7-period day schedule. They will log in to a virtual meeting with their teacher every Friday. And let's not forget that we're developing the mechanism and pushing on the expectation that those kids have the expectation to be logging into classes during the day as well, during the week. And then at the secondary level, every student has a 5-period day schedule, and they will be following that schedule. There are 30-minute classes built throughout the day, and students will be following that schedule, logging in along with their other distance learning peers in that class, having that one-on-one time with the teacher.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to bring up, I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions about what else is going on to help the teachers. Is there technology specialists helping out, making sure we have connections? And so what else are we doing other than saying have a Friday to catch up and serve the students? But what else are we doing as a district?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Great question. There are already in place academic support, instructional specialists, support specialists that are supporting staff with Canvas needs, technology needs. There are technology specialists in each building, district-wide with Amy Florin and Tim Brockman and our technology team, including Diane Georgie, providing support. Principals have already begun the process to meet with their teachers to identify different things that are logistically chewing up a lot of time, from taking attendance to tracking who's logged in and who isn't logged in. There are kids in the distance learning program that are hard to reach. They're not connecting, and that can be almost a full day job for a teacher to track down a kid who is drifting away out there and not engaged. So utilizing deans and counselors, administrative support staff to take on that work. So a teacher is able to say to a counselor, I'm not seeing so-and-so. It's been 2 days. I need some help. So that teacher now is back to lesson planning, teaching, and somebody else is now picking up, I'm reaching out to this kid and trying to bring that kid back in. So it is a team effort across the board. Our counseling staff, our dean staff, our administrative support staff have never been busier with providing SEL support, social emotional support, not to mention kids that are just not as engaged as deeply as they need to be.
There's a kind of a logistics tactical question. Not exactly on the calendar or this per se, but I know that when we started up hybrid and new COVID precautions within all the buildings, there were probably hundreds of issues that popped up that no one even considered. Is there like one massive list so they're being collected in one spot so we're not duplicating efforts? Like Principal Fox isn't working on the exact same thing that Principal Caldwell is because two different people brought it up to two different principals? Are we making sure that everything gets pulled into a center, wherever that might be, to make sure we're deploying resources and that nothing falls through the cracks? I heard like weird ones like cafeterias are different. Like, why are they different between different elementary schools? And it's important to the person who asks. And I recognize that when other things are on fire, you can't get to the little questions, but just making sure it's not lost in the whole thing. So is there something like that happening?
I would say there are many of those things in place, and we're still missing some things, to be honest. We meet as an Ad Council group every week. Those meetings have been 3 hours in length. We take copious amounts of notes, so we document solutions so we can track those and maintain those. We have an FAQ section on our website for the community, for teachers, and frankly, for our staff. One of the duplication pieces is just how do we respond when we have a potential exposure or positive case, just as an example. And we now have a established checklist that we pull, and we just walk our way through it, and that has streamlined that work and has allowed us to be a lot more consistent in our response there. So we have got, I think, a well-established set of minutes and notes from our meetings that we're able to track those pieces. I can tell you the elementary principals meet for multiple hours every week. They co-plan letters that go home to families, adjustments to conferences and open house. Those are group decisions, so they're not one-offs and people out doing different things. So they're learning from each other and making decisions together. That's not to say, Member Luthner, that we are missing some things along the way, but we meet so often that it's kind of ad nauseum where things are being brought up, but it's the only way to do this work. We have a tight team, and we're extremely fortunate for our ability to meet around a screen like this because of the size of our group and get a lot of good work done.
Okay. And just whoever had the brilliance of putting fast testing on the home day, I'm sure that was a hard decision because I see both sides of that, but I think it's an excellent use of preserving our face-to-face time with students and still getting the testing data that's important in its own way.
Yeah, this summer we realized we need to get that testing in right away in the event that we get pushed to distance learning. Taking you back to the conversation I had at the start of the meeting, maybe not so quick. So that's good news. We're kind of in a holding pattern of keeping kids in school, but we still want to get that assessing done so we know where the learning's at and we can start meeting kids where they're at.
Can I ask a question, Member Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Steve, going back to the secondary idea, I'm curious, I know that for teachers, just fielding all the emails, the callbacks, that stuff does eat up so much time. Do we have any paraprofessionals that are free that could help with callbacks or maybe rotate around and work with a cohort of teachers that shall field emails or do the callbacks? Or are you just simply kind of relying on, like you said, the deans and all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Member Tyson, but our paraprofessionals are tied to special education,
Right.
and by way of funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, and quite frankly, they are very busy supporting special education services.
Right. Are there any groups
We
that
also have a challenge filling open positions and when people are sick or not able to come into work. So we don't have an abundance of paraprofessionals and other staff that can fill those needs. So a lot of that stays on the plate of the teacher.
Yes, and that's really a hardship. One more question I have for you, and then I'm done, is, and I'm sure you've talked about it at the admin level and with principals, but will it come to a point where we will implement some sort of when a student disengages for X amount of phone calls, X amount of weeks, days, whatever, will we implement some sort of system to, what are we going to do with that? How do we deal with that? And I know last March through spring, when school ended, that happened quite a bit. So what are we thinking about now with that?
Yeah, home visits are a real challenge with COVID and exposure. But we do have county resources, and there are reports that we make after a certain number of absences, and we're following those. So if we don't have a student engaged in distance learning, we're going down the absence reporting process given to us by the counties and filing truancy. And it's not meant to be a punishment, but an activation of resources.
Good to know. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we will move to approve the modification of the 2021 school calendar. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, the calendar has been sent to your email. I hope that you have that. I'm not going to pull it up here because it's going to be too small for you to see on screen, but reference your email. You have a copy of the proposed calendar in front of you there. I will highlight just the most significant changes here and most noteworthy changes. The number of school days doesn't change. The spring break and the holidays aren't changing. But the designation of maroon and gold, you can see on this calendar, that Monday and Wednesdays are now maroon. Tuesday, Thursdays are gold. And every student, elementary and secondary, has been given a maroon or gold designation. This calendar means nothing for an elementary student because they come every day. But if we move to hybrid, this calendar becomes relevant for an elementary family. You can also see then that the Fridays are designated as distance learning days for secondary, but we've also put a designation there or an indication there on whether or not for an elementary student, if they're in hybrid, what that would be for that elementary student. So the half bar maroon would say that a maroon elementary student's coming on that Friday. A gold, half bar gold would say the gold student's coming on that Friday. There are 3 specific shifts to in-service days or work days. I'm going to highlight those for you. On November 30th will now be a school day, and December 4th will be a non-school day. That's a change from the previous calendar. The reason for these 3 changes, let me interject, is so that we can have an equivalent number of maroon instructional days and gold instructional days. So this doesn't work if we get out of balance with the number of in-person days for maroon and gold. The second change would be January 25th will be a school day and January 29th will be a non-school day. And March 15th will be a school day and March 5th will be a non-school day. So with that, I would recommend approval of this calendar modification.
Thank you, Dr. Massey. Any further discussion? I saw Member Keto's hand. No, you're good. Member Corcoran?
Oh, I'm good.
Member Luthner?
It's not always just me. I just do want to throw out the caution that just because this is a Friday, this does not turn into early weekend for kids. And I know that the teachers will schedule things, but it's sort of incumbent on the parents and students to see this as an educational day and not early weekend. And it's such a scary thing to have it on Friday. And so many districts did this on a Wednesday to prevent the weekend slide. And I know why we did it. It makes sense. But I just want it on the record that this is not an early weekend. This is an educational day. And I hope that everyone maximizes it to the degree they possibly can, because it's their education. They lose if they cut it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You didn't say this. We did not go with the Wednesday because we will have, in a substantial way, reduced instructional days, in-person days for kids. by taking the Fridays, we maximize instructional days, in-person learning days. But you're absolutely right. And there will be a class schedule for every distance learning student. And if they are a no-show, they're absent and they'll be unexcused. And there will be learning expectations for the hybrid students. And if they are not engaged and active in that learning, they will be absent as well.
So, Steve, I have a quick question. Color coding wise, there's a lot going on here on Fridays. How do I know if I'm in secondary that every single Friday for me is distant learning?
They know that because it's indicated on the calendar that we have distance learning days, and we'll of course have communicated that directly with families. I suppose we can add to that notation: elementary maroon group attends, secondary distance learning. We could add that notation if it adds more clarity.
Good catch, Joe.
I would say I can't. I'm confused just looking at it, and I don't have kids in the district, so.
Yeah.
So, Steve, do they already know if they're on maroon or gold? Did we give them that in advance?
Yes, every secondary student has been following that, unless they're in distance learning. And
yes.
Member Luthner can speak to whether or not if she knows which maroon or gold day for elementary kids that's been given.
I mean, I know because I have a secondary as well as elementary, but we were specifically told we would not be getting our color designations, and that's just Lino. So I don't know everybody's.
Yeah, it's been assigned. So whether or not
I'm not positive why it's a secret.
Yeah, it hasn't been relevant yet, but the day that becomes relevant, that'll be released. So I stand corrected there, but it's been identified in our system because we want families, for instance, in Kate's situation, secondary student and elementary student, we assume families want those to be the same day for the family. So we have set up the system to accommodate that.
I think the calendar flows really well. I know Member Corcoran brought up concerns right away when it kind of didn't read very well. So I think this switch makes it a lot more functional for everyone.
And I'd just like to add, I think the communication around maroon and gold I have a child in secondary at the middle school has been excellent. I mean, we have not questioned at all what days or when we've had to go. And Bodie himself is very in tune to which days he needs to go to school and get up.
And in the 7 whole days we've done this.
Yeah, but he knew about it. He's in tune. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. So, Member Clerk, would you take a roll call?
Okay, Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye.
All right, motion passes. With that, we have nothing under discussion. So I guess a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Member Clerk?
More time. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.